Thanks for the lights, Nate.
Yeah.
This is Good Morning Liberty. Yeah.
Well, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is another fantastic episode of Good Morning Liberty. My name is Nate Thurston. Across from me is the one and the only Mr. Charles Chuck Thompson. How's it going today, Chuck? On this beautiful, rainy, disgusting Tuesday afternoon here in Nashville, Tennessee.
Well, it's going great.
It's going really well.
I'm still on a high.
Good.
little,
yeah, still feeling
yeah.
good. Although I'm kind of coming down from it. I'm like, come on, repost this thing. You know, if I don't get another repost here soon, I'm going to feel like a failure.
It's not even that.
Yeah.
It's not a repost. I don't really care that much.
You want the follow. That's what you want.
No.
You want the follow.
I'm on the Libertarian high.
Oh, you're feeling good.
I'm on the
What, did you watch Dave Smith's rant yesterday?
I went on my own rant yesterday.
You guys both had the same rant yesterday.
He must have listened to the show.
Yeah, that's what it was. He follows us now.
Yeah.
So that must have been it.
I'm still on a Libertarian high. I mean, to think about these ideas are being shared worldwide, at least in the Americas.
Yeah.
We got North and South America talking about Austrian and Chicago and economics and waste.
I like starting with Chicago, by the way. Like, I know it's not the pure Austrian economics, but as I said to someone yesterday, Chicago economics is the gateway drug to Austrian. And so that's why I lead. Like, I post a lot of Milton Friedman stuff. He's not really libertarian. Well, he's dead, but he wasn't really libertarian before that happened. But it's a nice gateway for people. When you get your mind open to those ideas, I mean, you got to keep going. That's just the way it is.
Basic economics. I mean, that's the gateway economic book.
Yeah. That's Thomas Sowell also. Yeah, that's a good one
He's
too.
from the Chicago school.
Yeah, he is also Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Man, a lot of Chicago school people I listen to all the time, huh?
Yeah.
How about that? You know what? Now that you say that, the good news is the white pill for White Pill Tuesday. I think no matter what's about to happen, things are going to be different. Things are changing. There are so many people that are hearing ideas that they'd never heard before and supporting ideas that they'd never supported before, that I think regardless, things will be different. And the upcoming increase in authoritarianism from the U.S. government will be much harder because there are going to be so many more people that are now educated on Friedman videos and Soul videos, and maybe they accidentally read some Ayn Rand or something like that, and they're listening to Dave Smith and all these different folks out there, and probably Good Morning Liberty too.
I think Dave Smith made a good point yesterday that I didn't make in my rant, which was he brought up Ron Paul and how that kind of started the new age revolution in the early 2000s.
I brought that up.
2010s.
Yeah,
you did. But I do want to say one other thing, which is the OGs of this show will remember. About 2 years ago, I did a debate with Amanda Griffiths about whether or not essentially the libertarian message needed a populist.
Yeah.
To get to spread the message. And those of you who thought I lost the debate are now realizing, wow, Charlie won that debate because we're seeing it play out right now.
Yeah. Although
the populists are spreading the message much faster than we ever could have thought about.
One thing we had, you did inevitably win that debate.
Yes.
With Amanda is what happened. But one thing that we have to do a good job, and all the people listening have to do a good job, is make sure that we're seeing a lot of arguments getting made from the top right now, even from people like Trump and of course from people like Musk. We've got to make sure that the principles follow, and not just like, oh, I hate this program because they funded a gay comic book in Peru. That's stupid. We got to make sure that the principles follow, like taxation is theft. Government spending earn your income.
Is theft.
Government spending is theft. Stuff like that. Because, there's this popular video going around of a farmer who was upset about some of the funding that's frozen or that they're not going to get that was promised to them by the Biden administration, the Trump voter. And he was like, I built some fences or put in some water lines or whatever. And now they're sending me a letter saying this isn't going to happen. And I'm upset about that. And, when you're, say, in Argentina and people are dealing with 200% inflation or whatever it is, and people are, most people are having a really difficult time, it's a lot easier to make those arguments for like government austerity measures, and really trimming back on all the spending. But when you're in a country where like most people are doing really good, they tend to want other people's programs to be cut, and not their program that's affecting them. And so if we don't get the principles behind what's happening right now, it could end up swinging back in the other direction even easier than I thought it would in Argentina. They're in a bad enough spot that everyone knows that they need to fix something. Whereas in the U.S., most people are, living a pretty good life here. Even if prices do go up by 20% over the span of 3 years, most people are still living a pretty good life. So it's our job. It's your guys' job. Everyone on social media, everyone like that, to make sure that these principles are leading and following, whichever one, because I think the actions are happening first. So we got to make sure the principles are following. Okay, so a judge has found that the Trump administration violated the court order halting the funding freeze, which is something that happened like right after the inauguration. The judge is saying that they violated that. Here's a little bit of what that newscast sounds like.
President Trump in the Oval Office for the first time today, as a federal judge, also for the first time, is now accusing the Trump administration of straight up ignoring a court order, a move that could set up a high stakes showdown, an existential constitutional showdown, perhaps, between the executive and judicial branches of the government. And the judge laid out kind of a warning shot, saying people who make private determinations of the law and refuse to obey an order generally risk criminal contempt. Keep in mind how the last 21 days have gone down. A political blitz from President Trump, moving fast.
Are they threatening to put Trump in jail? Was that what that was?
Criminal contempt.
Yeah. I guess he can pardon himself for this. I mean, that would literally be a federal crime, I'm sure. Yeah. So just pardon himself.
Yeah.
He should go ahead and pardon Elon Musk for any crimes committed since conception up to 4 years from now.
Yeah,
too.
Exactly.
Problem solved.
Yeah.
I'm sure everyone will be fine with that.
Yeah.
No problem. Let's see. So a judge in Rhode Island on Monday said the Trump administration violated his order halting a sweeping federal funding freeze. John McConnell handed down the order after plaintiffs in the case. A coalition of 22 states said the government had not restored funding in several programs, despite his January 31st order temporarily halting the wide-ranging Office of Management and Budget directive that caused chaos and confusion for a couple hours in Washington, D.C. Let's see. Quote, the states have presented evidence in this motion that the defendants in some cases have continued to improperly freeze federal funds and refuse to resume disbursement of appropriated federal funds. Let's see. I like this quote right here. This is the one I wanted to remember to say from the judge. The defendants now plead that they are just trying to root out fraud, but the freezes in effect now were a result of the broad categorical order, not a specific finding of possible fraud. The broad categorical and sweeping freeze of federal funds is, as the court found, likely unconstitutional, has caused and continues to cause irreparable harm to a vast portion of this country. What I do like is that it's not based on a specific finding of fraud. Also, you guys aren't allowed to go into the system and find any fraud. We're not going to allow you to look and find the fraud, because that would be wrong. Actually, we'll have to rely on the agencies. The agencies have to find the fraud in their own agency. Those people who can't be fired and they're just going to wait out their time over the next 4 years until someone else comes in. Those are the people that have to find the fraud. And since they haven't found any, well, there's no reason that you should be able to say there's any fraud in these agencies. And also, you're not allowed to look yourself. That's interesting to me. I mean, this whole thing has been... We ranted about this yesterday, but this thing has been constructed in such a way that it is going to be very difficult to legally destroy it by design. That's the way it's been constructed.
Potentially.
And we'll see. This is going to go to the court. We'll see what they say.
If you listen to guys like McConnell.
Yeah.
But so far, they took his order, his TRO, and they just threw it in the trash.
Yeah.
And they're like, yeah, I'm not following this. Arrest me.
It was like that scene in Wolf of Wall Street. It was like, United States wants to give me a subpoena. Here's what. And then he pees on it. All right, this is CNN is freaking out right now. Bit of a CNN meltdown. The words of the day, the words of the administration so far, are constitutional crisis. Our Constitution it's just now in crisis, but so far it's been pretty good. When you think about the Constitution, the framers of the Constitution, and
all the agencies and the
all
money,
that stuff that, the 1913 didn't matter, the 30s and 40s didn't matter, nothing like that. It's just now, right now, when we're trying to wind back things that weren't in the Constitution to begin with, that we've ran into a constitutional crisis, which is amazing how that works. Here's a couple clips from CNN. This is Caitlin Collins, I believe is her name.
We are 3 weeks into the second Trump presidency, 3 weeks. And tonight, there are warnings that the U.S. is dangerously close to a constitutional crisis. Now, the first shoe on this dropped when a federal judge today said the White House is defying his order to unfreeze billions of dollars in federal aid, marking the first time that we've had a judge expressly accuse the Trump administration of ignoring a court ruling. And in a separate case today, federal employees here in Washington told a judge that the administration was defying another order by not reinstating workers who had been put on leave. Now, this all has prominent Democrats and many of the nation.
Can you imagine just for a second that you, as the executive who's supposed to have purview, like you pick the people that run the agencies, and you can't fire people who work in these agencies. You can't even put people on. You can't even offer to pay them for a bunch of time. Not worked.
Yeah.
Can't even do that. How are you ever supposed to fix this?
First of all,
if you don't do this,
this girl sucks.
Yeah.
CNN has really, I haven't watched CNN in a while, but they have really gone. I mean, this is the level of talent that they've got now at CNN.
They still have Scott Jennings on there. He's really good. We'll get to a clip involving him as well.
I just wanted to throw that out there.
First of all, was there a second of all too?
Second of all, yeah. I mean, I didn't. You can predict that this was going to happen.
Yeah.
They're really upset. And they use the Constitution, or try to, when it benefits them. Yeah. So we have to make sure that these fraudulent payments are still going out the door until we figure out whether or not they're fraud.
Yeah. So, by the way, I know that's the
also, by the way, hang on. And when you're in a private company, okay, and there's an investigation into your company, typically one of the things they do is they freeze all your funds until they can figure out what's happening.
Yeah, they'll do that.
So that the government will do that to you, but government can't do that to themselves.
No, you got to shovel that cash out the door, man. You have to, because Congress voted on it. It's interesting. What's crazy about that argument? So like, oh, well, the people's house, they voted and they appropriate these funds, and that's the people deciding to spend this money. What's crazy is the president doesn't have to sign a law that Congress voted to enact. So Congress votes and they're like, we're going to spend $1 trillion on this thing. Well, you would think, using the rationale that people use to argue against this, that means the president is bound by some sort of constitutional oath to sign that law. But he's not. They can say, we're going to spend this money, and he can say, I'm not signing it. Give me something else that says you're not going to spend that money. And in this case, he has to execute things that were signed by a different guy that was in office that he disagrees with. All right, here's another good clip.
Yeah, listen up.
This is Chris Murphy, I think, on here, possibly. Let me double check that. Chris Murphy posted this video.
I mean, this isn't hyperbole to say that we are staring the death of democracy in the eyes right now. The centerpiece of our democracy is that we observe court rulings, criminal court rulings, civil court rulings, and constitutional court rulings. No one is above the law. And whether we like it or not, the courts interpret the law. So yes, throughout the history of the United States, the courts have made rulings on when the executive branch is exercising legal power and when they are going beyond the power that they have, either constrained by statute or by the Constitution, just as they regularly rule on whether or not individuals have complied with the law or violated the law, whether those be civil laws or criminal laws. If the President of the United States says, you know what, I don't care what the courts say, I'm going to do whatever the hell I want, that's essentially the end of the rule of law, because if the president isn't bound by our laws and the Constitution, then why would anybody else be bound by our laws and the Constitution? This is a really dire moment. And
so who checks the judicial branch? Aren't there checks, you know?
Yeah.
There's checks and there's balances, that kind of thing. Are we making the argument that there is one branch that is superior that does control all the other branches? Is that the argument? That doesn't sound co-equal to me. I'm just saying it doesn't sound co-equal.
Well, you know, they make this argument that, you know, democracy is dying and this is the end of democracy. But first of all, this is why this is an important argument, that we are a constitutional republic.
Yeah.
We're not a democracy. We're a constitutional republic for this very reason, for the co-equal branches of government, so that they're able to check the other powers and say, no, that's not constitutional. I'm not doing it.
If we were a democracy, Trump won the popular vote and he's the one doing this. And so that kind of sounds like a true democracy, doesn't it?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Isn't that funny?
But then we're not, I had this post, I didn't post it. But you know, if we were true democracy, you would say, well, the people voted for Trump. He said he was going to bring Elon Musk in to cut all this stuff. He said he was going to end the Department of Education. He said they were going to cut $2 trillion from the budget, all that kind of stuff. If we were a true, you know, perfect constitutional republic, we wouldn't have all these executive agencies in the first place, you know, and so we're not that either. I don't really know what we are. We're like just an administrative state. That's basically all we are, thanks to freaking Woodrow Wilson and FDR. Let's see. Here's Scott Jennings making the argument. Let's see.
And Johnson, Lyndon B. Johnson.
Yeah, I mean, it just kept getting worse. Oh, this is I got two parts of Scott Jennings, who I don't know how long his tenure on CNN is going to last, because they just will not put up with people saying this kind of stuff about the courts. Here, let me see what this is.
Look, I think this is absolutely America first. It's needed policy, and it's what people have been asking for years. And honestly, politicians have talked about doing this for a very long time. The only difference is they never do it. You've had presidents from both parties say, I'm going to make the government smaller. I'm going to go in and look at the bureaucracy and make it more efficient. I'm going to trim where I can, trim the fat. No one ever does it. Reports are written, committees meet, people have phone calls, press conferences are held, and nothing ever happens except the government gets larger and larger. Lo and behold, Donald Trump shows up and throws out the sledgehammer, the instrument of destruction, Elon Musk, to actually do it and do it at lightning speed. This is precisely what voters have been demanding. Is he going to break a few eggs along the way? All
right, I want to go to the other video where they're arguing about defying the judge. Let's get to that.
But let me just understand where you stand. If a district court judge rules in a way that the president dislikes, should the president listen or should the president defy?
If a district court judge tries to usurp the authority of the chief executive of this country, he should absolutely defy it. There's a difference between broad policy decisions and discrete disputes between parties. That's the difference. If I want a policy decided, I'll take it to the Supreme Court.
But what about checks and balances?
Well, Scott, you're
of a district court judge who elected them.
What I can't get with is...
All right, so he's making the argument this is a district court judge. And of course, the administration wants this to go up to the Supreme Court. And with this guy saying, like, you guys are in violation of this, I mean, this is going to get moved up to SCOTUS pretty quick. I'm actually surprised that they haven't already said anything about it. But that's going to happen pretty fast.
Well, it has to go through the process.
Yeah.
So
they have to, yeah. And so it's going to move up pretty quick now, especially with him saying that they're in defiance of it. You know, I've seen a lot of people call for Scott Jennings to get removed from CNN because he's up there arguing that they should defy a court order, you know, and he's got someone arguing about the end of democracy here. And so I just want to play a clip from CNN of AOC arguing that the Biden administration should defy a court order.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has
this is AOC arguing that the Biden administration should defy the Supreme Court on CNN. All right?
I'm sure this was championed.
There has been thought, I believe, given to this. Senator Ron Wyden has already issued statements, for example, advising what we should do in a situation like this, which I concur, which is that I believe that the Biden administration should ignore this ruling. I think that the courts have the legitimacy and they rely on the legitimacy of their rulings. And what they are currently doing is engaged in an unprecedented and dramatic erosion of the legitimacy of the courts. It is the justices themselves, through the deeply partisan and unfounded nature of these rulings, that are undermining their own enforcement.
So you're saying the Biden administration should ignore this court, but what does that look like? What does that actually mean?
You know, I think the interesting thing when it comes to a ruling is that it relies on enforcement. And it is up to the Biden administration to choose whether or not to enforce such a ruling.
Yes! Exactly! Wow! That's the point.
And she's talking about the Supreme Court.
That's the
Not
point.
even what Scott Jennings was talking about, which was district courts. Oh, man. Yeah, so that's what
also, I like how she decided that because they made a ruling that she doesn't agree with, then by default, now they're illegitimate.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they had their authority because they used to be legitimate.
Well, they're partisan. These are partisan judges.
Now they're not legitimate.
Have you seen this video, Charlie? This is actually an analogy I was wanting to make. I was trying to come up with a perfect analogy for it.
I think I have.
Have you seen this one? Lacey actually told me about this video last night. It's made it all the way to Normieville when it comes to politics. She doesn't follow any political stuff, but she saw this video. And this is what's happening right now. Like all the people that are freaking out about Elon Musk trying to look in the systems or Donald Trump trying to shut down waste, fraud, and abuse and stuff like that. They really are acting like in her analogy, a cheating spouse who got caught, and they're upset about the way that they got caught. Now, the entire conversation is about the way that they were caught.
And / their gaslighting
you
into thinking it's not that bad.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that. They've flipped the entire situation around to where we're not even talking about the fact they were cheating anymore. We're talking about the fact that you shouldn't have glanced at my phone.
Yeah.
You know? That is what we are going to argue about right now. But let's listen to her say it.
Showed up to the hotel.
Yeah.
That I was begging.
Democrats are acting like cheating boyfriends right now. I'm sorry, but somebody's got to say it. I'm independent. I think there's good ideas on both sides. There's bad ideas on both sides. But what this Doge audit is reminding me of is like a girl taking her boyfriend's phone and like hiding in the bathroom. And the Democrats are just banging on the door. And they're like, you are invading my privacy. You can't go through my phone. And Elon Musk is like, yes, I can. I can see what you've been up to. And then every time Musk comes out of the bathroom, he's like, look, see what you did? They just turn it around and they're like, you invaded my privacy. This was your fault. You broke my trust.
Yeah. It's the same principle.
Yeah. Charlie's having like flashbacks right now. But anyway, yeah, that's exactly what's happening right now. And that the entire situation
considering
gets flipped around
I'm in an actual, I'll just say it right now. I'm in an actual court case where I'm being
hold back.
I'm just saying it's public information if you guys want to look it up.
Yeah.
I am being not charged. I am being I have alleged invasion of privacy.
Yeah.
Tort claims against me currently.
Yeah.
So that's interesting.
That is interesting. Before we get out of here, I don't have time. We don't have time to do anything in detail right now other than just make fun of how freaking crazy everything is at the moment.
Do you have that clip of Trump calling Warren Pocahontas? Said she's a faker.
That's this one.
Is that
right
this
here.
one?
Yeah.
It's so funny.
So they're trying to shut down the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. And by the way, they've got a really clever way of talking about this. They'll say, well, they want to shut down the CFPB, which keeps you from getting scammed by banks, and it's actually saved taxpayers $21 billion or something like that. And they don't even direct any funding towards it. It gets funded by the Federal Reserve, which, okay, so what, they inflate your money so they can fund the CFPB, but whatever. Yeah, so it's still funded with your money. It's a tax. You still pay for it. But they're like, oh, they've saved people $21 billion. And that's an interesting way to talk about it, but they don't talk about what it's potentially cost you. You know, here's, like, let's say, here's the money that I have saved by preventing late fees.
This is girl math.
Yeah, it is.
Yes.
But what they do not show on the other side are the costs that have rippled out to Americans all over the place. Now, it is
Honey,
true
look at this shirt I got. You know, I saved $20 on it. You know, I spent 22, but I saved 20 because it was 40.
No, in this case, it's that there was a shirt on sale at a Target in New York, and so you booked a flight to fly to New York so you could buy the shirt for $20, and then you returned back and you said, hey, look how much money. It was $40 here at the Target at our store. I just saved you $20 with this shirt. Look at that.
Yeah.
I got to
Don't look at the $500 round trip flight.
$500 ticket to go there, but hey,
The
look,
Ubers.
I saved you $20.
Yeah.
Isn't that awesome?
That's a good analogy. Yeah.
Here's Trump talking about.
Mr. President, regarding the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, Democrats, including Elizabeth Warren, have said that by freezing it, it's giving big banks and giant corporations the green light to scam families.
Pocahontas, the faker. That was set up to destroy people. She used that as her little personal agency to go around and destroy people. And she's a fake. Just like she said she was an Indian, and she wasn't an Indian. You have more Indian blood in you than she has. She went to college based on the fact that she was an Indian. She got jobs based on the fact that she was an Indian. She's a fake. That was set up to destroy some very good people, and it worked. I mean, it worked. A lot of great people. I'll tell you, before I ever heard the term, people would come up to me in the Midwest and areas and say, "Sir, I'm being destroyed by them."
Okay, to be clear, I don't think he really knows what the CFPB does, but he does. He does know that Elizabeth Warren did fake being the Native American so she could get into college and get jobs. Mm-hmm. He does know that for sure.
This is what we missed.
This is what we missed.
This is the best.
Speaking of
this is the best TV that there is.
Speaking of Pocahontas, I believe this was today. There's a Federal Reserve hearing going on.
The President of the United States is sitting in the Oval Office trolling a senator. She's a fake.
That's great.
Pocahontas. Just absolutely trolling.
Has she ever answered for that, by the way? Has anyone truly brought that up to her?
Office.
That's wild.
It's the best TV. You can't script this kind of stuff.
All right.
This is why we missed Trump.
Here's Warren questioning, talking about getting rid of the CFPB in a hearing here with Jerome Powell today, and she gets called out right in front of her face in cursive.
By forcing the CFPB not to do its job, President Trump, Elon Musk, and the author of Project 2025, Russ Vought, are giving Wall Street banks an unlimited get-out-of-jail-free card so they can cheat working families, even while community banks continue to play by the rules. For any Americans who have money deposited at JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or any other of the giant banks, they should now know that there is no one on the job to make sure that those banks are not scamming you.
The suggestion that the ranking member has made here is that the big banks can now scam individuals right now. Any change in the laws regarding how they're supposed to be treating the individual consumers out there or anything along that line?
Law changes? No, I'm not aware of any.
Any changes, any rules that they would have to follow?
Not that I'm aware of.
Are they still audited, and do they still have the regulators in watching all of their businesses just as they did before?
Well, they'd have all the regulators except for the CFPB.
Very good.
If in fact, in the hypothetical, the CFPB weren't carrying that out.
Anything else you'd like to add before we move on?
No, I'm good.
Okay, so he's like, no laws changed or anything. It's all still the same. We don't have time to go into this in big detail, but the bottom line is they basically pushed for a lot of things that have cost people a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Now, it's true that they will go after actual scams, and they have a victim compensation fund and stuff like that, which is much smaller than the money they claim to have saved taxpayers since their existence. This is something that came from the Dodd-Frank Act. This is after the financial crisis, because, of course, that's what we were lacking, was a regulatory agency that could go after late fees and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Not the fact that we bailed out the banks and didn't let them fail.
No,
for
it wasn't
their
the
terrible
fact
practices.
It wasn't the fact that we forced them to give loans to people that they didn't want to give loans to, and we told them that we would back them up if it failed. That's not what it was. It was that we let them charge overdraft fees and stuff like that. So there's a lot of things like qualified mortgage rule that says add a lot of cost to mortgages, and actually, some people have stopped issuing new mortgages altogether. CFPB rules resulted in historically low volumes of mortgage loan originations, especially for less fortunate people. There's rules on prepaid credit cards that make them more expensive for people to use. Prepaid debit cards, making them more expensive for people to use. Essentially, you can use those cards and get away from having a bank account, but they've made it about the same price as having a bank account through all the regulations on them. Payday loan rules, which we spent a lot of time talking about way back in the day. People might not like the interest rates on payday loans, but they've essentially killed about 75% of the market for payday loans. And they'll calculate that in as like what they've saved people, but they don't bring up the fact that like, all those people weren't able to get loans, that they wanted to get, or that they had to go to, black market lones,
or
stuff like that.
Lost their electricity, or their water got shut off, or whatever the case may be.
Just all sorts of rules and regulations on banks, and that's not even to mention the talk around what they've done in debanking. We've heard about debanking before, which is something that I never looked that much into, but apparently a lot of that is also linked to the CFPB. We've got a minute and a half left, so we're not going to be able to go into any more detail. I do have 8 more tabs up here of information on the CFPB to go through, and we're not gonna be able to go through them today. Mm-hmm. So until another day, we will talk about that, and we will talk about the new steel tariffs that were just announced, and that's going to make everyone feel really good. The bad part about that is that we've actually got data from the previous steel tariffs that went into effect in 2018, and it turns out that it had a net loss of jobs. Barely more jobs in the domestic steel production industry, and less jobs in all of the industries that use steel to make things, which is a heck of a lot of industries, because the costs went up for all of them, and so they ended up hiring less workers.
Is 2020 factored into that too?
So I tried to get data without 2020, because I did find a website that was like, oh, here was the number of jobs in 2018, and here's the number in January of 2021, and I'm like, well, that's not a good data set to pull from.
Right.
Like, I need to know February of 2020. It seems like the steel tariffs resulted in a net loss of about 75,000 jobs across the economy. Now, there was a tiny net increase in domestic steel production jobs, but there was a net loss of about 75,000 jobs in the U.S.
who use steel.
Of other companies that use steel to make things. And so there's no argument to make that it's going to be good for jobs in the United States. You can make other you can make other arguments if you want, like it's good that we can produce our own stuff, and it's good to have these industries, and you can make all those arguments. Do not make the argument that it's going to help jobs in the U.S.
Yeah,
we've got the data on it. That's not what it does.
I'm pretty sure the British ninja sword dealers makers.
Yeah,
they had to cut back.
Yeah,
so we should see the sword crime go down.
That's good.
In the UK now, so we can talk to Idris
Elba.
We can talk to him and see if these tariffs are good for reducing knife production.
Yeah.
In the UK, so that their assault knives can, attacks can go down.
So it's going to save lives.
It could. This could potentially save lives. We got to talk about that element at least.
Yeah, you can't leave that out.
But that's for another day. So if you all enjoyed today's episode, then share the show with a friend, a family member, or foe. Leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Remember, we are now an Elon Musk reposted.
You got 10 seconds till
endorsed podcast. This call's not that important, so I can go a little further. We are now an Elon Musk reposted endorsed podcast. So share that with your friends, your family members, or foes. The liberals probably hate it.
Kevin said this was short, not sharing.
So do all that. Go to GodHatesFeds.com or join gmail.com to be part of the Fed Haters Club. We would love to see you there. And if you do all that, we'll be back again tomorrow. Until then, I hope you have a good day and a good morning, Liberty.